Well, hello and welcome back. We are continuing our season where we are building better momentum. Yeah, we haven't even gotten to that yet. We're late into the season, but we're adding a few little title changes as we go. We're really talking about getting unstuck, moving forward. This started at the beginning of the year, and now we're into a new quarter. And we still want to keep this forward momentum. This is an episode in the prior one, which you can pause. You can go back to listen to that if you haven't, where we're really talking about that like forward momentum. We're talking about doing the things that are going to allow you to be positioned to be a better developer in the year ahead. And if you don't, you're probably going to be in a bad situation. But before we get into that, really exciting conversation of part two, we should probably introduce ourselves. This is the Developreneur Podcast, Building Better Developers. I am Rob Broadhead, one of the founders of Developreneur, also the founder of RB Consulting, where we help you use technology. Before you dive into whatever your project is, we actually put the brakes on a little bit and say, let's do a reality check and figure out what do you have, and let's make sure that you define your problem properly so that you do not have it amplified by AI, which is something we'll talk about later in this episode. Good thing and bad thing. Good thing is, I'm just going to go right in the tech side of it this time. Good thing is, this is a very fun period from a technology point of view. The ability for me to just knock out project after project after project after project that's been on my list. And some of the things that I've said, if I just had this, it would help me get my work done faster and free me up to do more big thinking. Has done so. It is amazing how many things that have not only gotten accomplished, but how that has opened me up to think about how I want to accomplish those even better. And some of now other tools and automations that will just be like, oh, okay, now I'm up to the next level. So I'm going to need this information. I'm going to need that information. I'm going to need to process this and process that. That's great. This is so fun. It is one of those where you just love being able to allow the creative energies to just explode and go create stuff. The downside is it is hard to keep up with all of the changes. There's so many things. I'm using the tools so much right now that it is sometimes hard to keep up with how the tools are changing. It's not even, it's working on the tool or in the tool instead of on the tool and things like that. It's just like, grab something and go, and we're trying to figure it out as we move forward. It is definitely fun times, but they're only going to get better as Michael introduces himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Malash. I'm one of the co-founders of Building Better Developers, also known as Developreneur. I'm also the founder of Envision QA, where we create reliable, tailored software that helps you work smarter, scale faster, and stay in control of your business. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing, very similar to Rob, been playing with AI, trying to keep up with the tools. Actually used it the other day to solve a problem I've been fighting with for 5 weeks, dealing with a legacy application that they wanted to clone and repurpose for something else. And there was so much tribal knowledge or missing knowledge within the company. No one knew what this did or how this worked. Ultimately, AI was able to help me decipher this complex gobbledygook of code and get it working and repurposed. Downside, like Rob, there's so many things I want to do with it. It's like, just with this conversation, part one gave us so many ideas. It's like, okay, I want to go in this direction. I want to do that. There's just so many things I want to start playing with and start trying. There's just not enough hours in the day yet. Getting there, and hopefully AI will help streamline that process for me faster and get me to where my forward momentum is going at a rate where I'm looking for the next idea instead of dealing with my backlog.
That is definitely a good place to go, being up on top of the wave as opposed to being about to be crushed by the wave as it collapses over us, which too many of us have lived through that too many times, including Thanos, that we'll be talking to here momentarily. We're going to dive right back into the conversation. This has been a really fun one. Both Michael and I enjoyed it. Thanos obviously enjoyed it. A lot of energy in this discussion and a lot of just like modern reality. So this is one of those that I have a feeling will probably not last over time. It is not going to be an evergreen episode. We are very much talking about what is going on in the here and now, and some of the challenges that you guys are probably seeing out there as well. So without any further ado, let's return back to our conversation with Thanos.
Yeah, I've kind of seen that too. In fact, I've actually gone more of a shift from like as I adopt AI more with my with assisting in code development. I actually have it start out with the requirements, define the test, and then have it write the code to the test. And some of the other things I've gotten better at, or it's gotten better at, is okay. Give me the happy path for these requirements, then give me the negative testing for these requirements. And that's where you start to see either the breakdown of the testing or it really helps train the AI in how you want the test built. After probably a couple of weeks of doing that, it's actually getting better now at defining these tests. But I love what you're saying, though, about the end-to-end tests. For a decade, I was writing automation tests, and I built a test framework to build a Selenium test where it would scan a sitemap and actually build the whole test framework for you. And all you literally had to do is plug in the actions. I was still automating that, and then build your test cases. 6 months of work in like 2 minutes. AI now, well, one of the arguments with that was Selenium tests, contract testing, of that is too expensive because your IDs, your front ends change too much, and it's like they break. With AI now, like you said, it is interesting to see that you can quickly spin up that full end-to-end test and make that more repairable in a acceptable way instead of guessing. So that's just one interesting thing I've seen. So I want to take this just a little bit further than the testing, though. So taking it from the test side of things and the requirement side, taking it all the way back to the business side, where do you see changes? Because I'm running into some governance issues with a couple of different projects I'm working on, which is slowing AI because, of course, private information and credit card information, things like that, is still unsafe in AI. So they're afraid to adopt it, or they have to build their own systems. But I'm not seeing enough of a change, or I can't figure out how to push the business side on the requirements gathering on the business side to build or adopt AI to help structure what we need as developers or the application. Kind of like what you said, we go months in between these iterations is ridiculous. So how do you see that changing, and how can you see companies adapt that are not stuck adopting AI, but are dealing with some limitations because of governance?
Yeah, so I want to take one quick step back on your testing thing and edge in a thought that was super interesting. I love the idea of the end-to-end test, the way you describe them. But one of the things that I've been hitting recently is when you set the AI to build something new, you always want to say, by the way, do not even show this to me until all the tests pass. So the AI will go in these nice little cycles that will figure this out and give you something that's really nice and working with the test passing, and hopefully hasn't disabled half the test to do this. But the annoying thing is that if your end-to-end tests take half an hour, now every time it needs to do a cycle, it's half an hour. So if it has to run these so many times, it just takes like days to build something that if it could find some way to run the test faster, it'd be better. So that's when I keep coming back to, like, we're going to figure out better ways to do this where we can get the same level of confidence without the same level of actual expense and like time and compute. So that was kind of like a cool thought there. So but go back to your question, right? I keep coming back to...
Before you jump into that, a quick answer to that question. Look at spinning up Docker containers with Selenium Grid and ask it to dump or do that type of testing within your local Docker container instances, and that might speed up your testing.
Yeah, so that works, but then my machine is like, which is like a Mac Studio, is like all cores are maxed out. And I was like, I'm limited because I have like 6 projects and each of them are working on 10 different features, and it's just maxing out. So like it's possible, but the compute just becomes so expensive. So I think we have to figure out a theoretical way of proving the risk in a better way. But yes, in the short term, obviously that's kind of what we're doing, and that's really nice because we can actually get some speed, like, but you're kind of paying for it. But yeah, that's superb. So back to the question of, like, that's the other fun question of, how do you get business to adopt this? How do they come to trust the AI? And I think similar to how you trust other processes, I think we're going to get there gradually, right? Because we saw the AI do some stupid things early on, and then we put some guardrails around it, and we started like looking at it and put the humans in the loop in certain places. But as you see it do the right thing over and over and over again, I think we're beginning to see more and more of the adoption here. I also think, like, kind of like self-driving cars, right? People are not the best drivers, engineers, as much as we like to think really positively about ourselves, we're not the best code reviewers. We're not the best things in many number of ways. So it becomes much easier to have the AI, and I've done this recently. There's a project that I'm working on that has to be HIPAA compliant, and I've looked through every line of code that is generating in the authorization authentication area. But every week I run the AI and say, go through this and you tell me what you find. It always finds more stuff than I did. Right. So I think as we start to put, again, these processes in place and that culture in place, and now AI reviews become part of our CI/CD, and we start giving it precise instructions of the threats and things that we're looking at, I think we're going to see that it's going to be much better than us in some areas. And you can see this, like you saw, Anthropic came out with a new version the last couple of days, Mystic, that is really good at figuring out security flaws. And there's been talk over just the last few days of how much better AI is beginning to get in figuring out and punching PRs that fix CVEs across different open source projects. Like that's like 2 months ago, people were complaining that like AI is producing this slop that is too hard to read. And now it's like, we're reevaluating that because actually now we're beginning to see some really good CVEs being fixed. Sorry, not CVEs. CVEs are known. We're starting to see some 0 days being found by the AI and getting the fixes in really quick. So I'm pretty positive here that we keep looking at the right structures and safeguards around it and keep putting those in place. And we're going to keep seeing these massive improvements.
It's interesting as I'm hearing the discussion on both sides here is that it seems like this is actually goes back to like a core thought that I have and have said a couple of times is AI doesn't fix things, it just amplifies them. Is it what we've done now with AI is we've taken the problem that you, Thanos, initially laid out of business talking to developers, and it's supposed to take a week, but then it takes 2 weeks, and it's a back and forth and a back and forth, and it's cycles. But what AI has done is it's shrunk those cycles now. So we are seeing more of those things come to the surface and it begs the question that maybe it's not the tools, maybe it's not even the process itself, but maybe there's something that we need to do a little more upstream to make sure that we are understanding the problem that we're defining so that our requirements are tightly defined. So it's not just giving a happy path as like Michael's seeing, but we are also within those requirements, including things like understanding not only what works, but what does not work. And is that something that you're seeing is that you're having to step in and almost like back them up a little bit and say, wait a minute, you guys are doing a few things right, but you actually have to go back to some of the fundamentals. You need to maybe understand and define your business a little more detailed. And as you said, it's like as a business user, is this one of those situations like somebody describing how to tie a shoe where they know it, but to put that into a language and into details is where there's a disconnect, all the way before we even start into development and implementation.
Yeah, you're exactly spot on, right? That depending on what your processes and systems are, AI will amplify those. If they're good, you'll get better. If they're bad, they'll get worse. So it is fixing those systems. But the nice thing about AI is that now it gives us a speed to fix those systems. So a year ago, I'd go in a company and say, look, I looked over what you're doing in a week. That's great. We have a few processes we can fix really quickly by fixing things over here. And you have all this tech debt over there. And you're going to put 30% of your time in tech debt, and it's going to take us a year to do this. You'll start seeing some benefits in 6 weeks and in 2 months and so on. Now we can go in and do the same thing and say, and yes, and we're going to fix like maybe a lot of your tech debt in the first week because we can set up the AI and have it get done. And now you start seeing the results a lot faster than you used to before. That's a much more palatable answer. To do this, again, you need to be pointed in the right direction. And you mentioned sort of requirements, and I really like the idea of doing some upfront planning to figure out what your requirements are. But I talked about sort of the humility of not knowing what you don't know upfront. So what I like to do is structure these processes where you can go from loose requirements to tight requirements as you develop. And there's different ways where you do the hardest things up front, the riskiest things up front. We have all those tools to do these bits and pieces. But you usually start with English, or some language that you speak, whatever that may be. But my point is languages are imprecise, and you end up with code, and code is very precise. Code needs to know exactly what to do in every possible situation. So to go from English, just the language of choice for right now, to code, you will have to solve every detail and requirements. Literally, if you don't, you'll have something throw an exception or something crash because you hadn't thought of a particular situation that you're in. So it is this iterative discovery of requirements, the faster that we can make that one go, and that is that is made to work better if you have the right culture, the right processes, and the right technology, the faster we can go to code that works in the right way that we want it to. And that's kind of like the things that we put in place when we go in organizations is getting that process right. And we captured a lot of things before as to how we do these things, the language that we talk to people with, and all the bits and pieces that we do in engineering.
Yeah, so it's going from like the natural language to the tech language, essentially, whatever your natural speaking language to tech. Yeah, I remember dealing with that back in college, having to do the technical writing classes versus your English classes. They were two totally different monsters to kind of suss out, and then to actually write the code. Yet another language. Running joke. My daughter's like, "Well, I can speak 3 languages." I'm like, "Well, that's fine. I can code in 25." But she's like, "But that's." I'm like, "It's still a language." It's just one of those misconceptions. Back to the business side of this a little bit more. So changing that mindset, getting that conversation going. So we've talked about getting from the natural speaking language to the code and working more on the requirements, garbage in, garbage out, good practices gets good, AI just amplifies that. Getting back again to the SDLC model, you get the requirements, you get the why, the things of that nature. How do you go into these companies, or how would you help our listeners figure out, how do I work on that? I get AI is great for writing code, is great for solving these coding problems. It's good for helping me figure out requirements, but how does it help me with the rest of the early process of getting ready to build the code?
Yeah, so I think the code building and the requirements building share a lot of similarities. And before, it was, we might have some companies that are on the bigger side may have a research group that goes and does some market research and figures some things out. And then they have a product group and they go figure out with that research what they're going to build. And they may have some designers that go and build some UI UX. And we make some Figmas or something and we show it to people, or paper prototypes back in the day. And then we might throw that to engineering and we decided which one of these we're going to build. Well, I think that's out the door now. Right now, you can have someone, almost anyone, and maybe they can sit with an engineer, or maybe they can have people with these kind of expertise sit together, and you can say, "Hey, we're thinking of tackling this market segment or this area or this general feature. We have 5 feature ideas. Think them through. Think of 10 ways of doing each of these. Pick the best based on these criteria. Think of any criteria we might have missed. Chew on it for a few hours, and come back to us and make us some lists." Or even you can say, and take the top 5 contenders and just prototype them. And then you can actually look with hands-on things that you can literally click on it and they actually work, and say, okay, yeah, we like this, we hate that one, that was a terrible idea, this is promising, go do some more research on this. So we really compact this. So by the time we ship this to engineering, we really know we're building the right thing with much better certainty. So I have the inner loop of engineering that's just trying to build the right thing and make it work. And the outer loop is product, trying to get product market fit, go from idea to something that sells in the market. I think these are just squished together now. You can do them both. So when you go into a reluctant company, what I like to do is run small experiments, right? So you can show this by doing, and I've done this recently a few times, where you can go from let's chat about it today, and literally by tomorrow, you will have this feature. I have one client, we actually did this. We had a meeting yesterday morning. We thought this is a good idea. Now let's ship it. And today, this morning, it was actually shipped out into production, and we're actually trying it out. We may throw this feature away. We may never see the light of day. I don't think it will. I think it will adapt to something useful. But showing these little successes helps build credibility and helps show how this works. And you kind of build on that success and keep going and keep going. And also, it's not just, don't see this as a sly move to just convince people to move forward, but it's also to learn about how the teams operate with each other, learn what their needs are as they're talking through this, suss out what their requirements, not in product requirements, but what the business team would like, sort of schedules and certainty, and the engineering team would like things that they understand that they can build out without having to be yanked around as to be changing things, right? They each have their needs. So if they communicate with their needs well to each other, that breeds more success as that team can push out things with better speed, with better quality, and with higher happiness across the board.
So last question for me before I throw this back to Rob. So we've talked about all the good things that AI can do and all the things that you can bring to the companies to help transform their business practices with AI. Let's talk about the negative effects of this, or the downside. Are there any instances where you have had this fail, or you've had an overwhelming challenge of convincing a company or getting this to work for someone?
There's a couple of buckets here, right? One is culture. Have you heard the adage that culture eats strategy for breakfast? Right? You might have the strategy that you're going to adopt AI across the company, and no one wants to. So I think that's hurdle number one. I think you find a lot of people that are reluctant to adopt AI. And there's some that are good reasons, right? There's good reason that last time I tried to do this, it deleted my production database. I think the answer to that is, well, you probably shouldn't have given it the keys, and here's some safeguards you can build around it. So go and try that again rather than write it off, because if you write it off, your competitors won't, and they'll eat your lunch. So that's kind of one thing, right? These are the manageable things that we as engineers should do. There's a second thing, which is an issue of psychology and psychological safety, not in the traditional way they've been talking about it in the last few years, but the engineering profession is changing, and it's changing quickly, and it's changing a lot. So I think people are really feeling that, and they're afraid, right? Is the AI going to be doing my job? So if I can see that the AI can do this better than me, what am I here to do? Am I just clicking and authorizing its bash commands every time? And again, I think the answer to that isn't just, put your head in the sand and hope it's going to go for the better, but it's learn how to leverage it, learn how to use it, and learn how to get the speed gains. And those that figure out how to put the safety net around it and get both speed and quality at the same time are going to be the winners. So it's like a delicate process of having to work a team through that to get them to adopt it. And it's changing so quickly that it's hard to give like concrete advice this week versus last week of what's happening here. But that's kind of one of the main things that I see here. Another thing is, as you go to bigger companies, they have different sort of sets of rules. 2 years ago, you might be hearing we don't trust what the IP is that is going to come out of these things. I think no one talks about that anymore. I think that's reasonably okay for now. But now you're hearing things such as security, where security teams will not let you run anything, even remotely exciting, in there. So, if you're working in a larger company, you may be sort of hamstrung with one tool that company has bought there, and struggling to make that work. So these are the two most common roadblocks that I'm seeing for adoption. I don't give too much credence to the AI deleted my production database. I think these are yes, those will happen. Yes, it will burn something down, but establish good version control, keep good backups, run it in VMs where you need to. Don't give it the keys to production. There are good practices you can follow there to mitigate these things. And occasionally we'll do something dumb, but I think the benefits that you'll see are going to be worth the trade-off there.
It's very funny because that is something that has been a mantra for my development career is don't give production keys to the development team, because we have seen human beings do the same thing. And I may have possibly at some point in my life done one of those where I ran something and was like, darn, that was a mistake, and then having to, restore a database or go to a backup or something along those lines. So AI, once again, maybe showing some of the same flaws of its, we'll call it its human masters. A closing thought, a closing question, because we've sort of touched on this a little bit. Moving forward, do you see, and I'm trying to see how to best ask this, but essentially a shift, if you think of the two sides, of the business side and the engineer side, do you see a shift where one is going to be moving more towards the other due to AI and the cycles, where either developers are they're going to have to become more business savvy, or the business owners are going to become more technology savvy? Or do you see it maybe a little of both? And with the caveat, this obviously could change a week from now.
I think that was always going to be the case. And I think in my practice, that's something that I was always been advocating, in that both sides, you say them as sides because they're just separate groups. Literally, they usually have different reporting sections and so on, but they're two parts of one broader team, right? So these two parts of one bigger team, they need to understand each other. When you're developing what your roadmap is going to be for the coming future, the product side, business side, is going to be the advocate for what are the features that they want and what are the bugs that they want. The engineering or technical side is going to be the advocate for what is the technical debt and investments they want to make in their platforms and their systems, and what are the risks that they have, the technical risks. Neither of these sides are going to be able to get in the deep guts of the other side, right? Like not every engineer needs to understand the deep market research as to why this feature needs to be built, nor does any product person need to understand what are the actual technical vulnerabilities this pull request is going to fix when we update this version of YAML. But they need to understand that both sides need these things, and you can't delay those things forever, and you're going to have to work on them together. So I think it was always going to be the case that these groups need to get better at working together than they have historically been. And again, this varies across companies, etc. But now with AI, I think everyone can do each other's job much better with the help of the bots. So I, as an engineer, can say, hey, they gave me this feature and I'm not sure how the front end should work, and this doesn't feel right to me. So give me 5 ideas on how to make it better. And in 10 minutes, I can have like a better UI, and I can ship it back to my PM and say, this now works. Is that good? And they're like, yeah, that's probably fine. So I'm bleeding into doing their work. And the PM can also like grab the code base and say, hey, I'd like to see what that page would look like if you move these things around this way. And they can also in 10 minutes have a working prototype. So I think the roles are beginning to sort of overlap, and we'll have to understand each other better. And I think that's actually going to be a massive driver of productivity, because when you get all the decision making and the expertise in one place, that speeds up those little loops, and you can move a lot faster. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Sorry, I got this. This hit me while you were talking, and this was not a self-serving softball question, because it sounds to me that like you're moving from a developer and an entrepreneur right to mix them together into a developerpreneur. So there you go. Maybe that's where we've all, and maybe it is. I think it's interesting, because this is where we've always thought the best developers are those that have the business knowledge. And maybe it's funny that it just now has hit me as we've been talking to you, that I think that this developer thing is actually where we're going to go, as those are going to be the next rise, as the people that can really they have both sides of it enough that they can get the bots doing what they need to do, but they understand the business side, the product development side, so that they can actually push that through cycles very quickly and get something to market that can hopefully stick in the market for more than 2 weeks before AI finds a way to overcome it.
Yeah,
it has flown by. This has been way too much time, or there's way too little time for us to talk. This has been incredible. So before we wrap this one up, I would be amiss if I did not allow you to share what are the best ways for people to get a hold of you or reach out to you if they want to talk to you just professionally, or whether they want to make use of your services.
Yeah, there's 2 ways. The one is go to my website, cosmicteacups.com, and sign up for my mailing list over there. I post occasionally on all sorts of subjects along the lines of what we discussed today on my mailing list. And also you can follow me on LinkedIn, and you can just search me up on there and hit the follow button. I also write and post on LinkedIn a lot, and happy to chat about any of these things with anyone. I find it super fascinating.
Yes, it is. Obviously, that's what I think made this such a great discussion, and maybe something we have more of these discussions down the road as well. Thank you, all of you that are listening, that if you've been hanging out with us for this last little bit, you can put your pencils down now, or you can tell your AI bot to stop and go summarize what just happened for you, so that your fingers are not too worn down. We do appreciate all the time you've done, the investments you've made into listening to this, and to developing your own career and finding ways to make yourself better. As always, go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time. Now, bonus material. Now, I had sort of I sort of cut that, so it looked like you almost had maybe you had a comment on my last comment. Feel free to dive into that. And then if there's a parting thought that you have for our audience, or a challenge that you'd like to push to them.
My bonus material is going to be a little of a joke, which happened to me the other day, which was I was told the AI, hey, this is still crashing, and here's the log message. And I went back and did something else and came back to it later. And the log message said, the AI said, this is not a log message. This is a chili recipe. Like, what? And I look at it, and I had inadvertently pasted a chili recipe because I was doing the shopping list on some other window. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, darn it. It's right. That is a chili recipe. It doesn't know what to do.
The best part is it did at least know that it was a chili recipe.
I think 6 months ago, it might have said, let me implement this chili recipe for you, and actually gone and done something. But at least now it knew. Back in a few days, back in like a few months ago, when you said to ChatGPT or Claude, you said, I have this problem, what it is, and you said hit enter before pasting the actual thing, it would be very confused. Whereas now it says, I think you forgot to paste something. Can you please paste it and I will continue? So I think that's kind of along the same lines.
As you get, it's getting a little more human and understanding our humanness in a sense of like, okay, sometimes we make mistakes, and so if the context isn't there, but it goes back to the whole getting it right, from the start. Is if you're understanding the problem, if you're defining it, if you're asking whether it's AI or the development team to solve the problem, and you're defining the problem properly, then they're going to have a better chance of success. If you give them a chili recipe, then they're probably going to struggle to solve your problem. So that is awesome, bonus material. And I think it's something that I will guarantee you, I have done that before. I have done some mispacing, and it's like, stop thinking. Sorry, that is not going to, especially when you're, these days, it's like, oh, wait, I just gave you a log from a different application that a different chatbot is working on, or a different AI thing is reading through. It's like, you're not going to be able to fix that one. But it now has, it's a little bit, we'll call it self-aware enough that it's like, okay, this isn't in my context. This doesn't make sense. So it's at least learning to ask just as we do. So we have to watch out. Maybe our jobs are going to be stolen as well from AI.
Yeah. But let me answer your actual question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Unless you had a different one.
No, go ahead and answer his, and then I got to follow up.
Yeah, so I'll give you like the one thing that's been swirling around my head the last few days is like, okay, what is the advice that I want to give? Because that's sort of been changing. As the recommendations that we keep giving is just changing day to day and week to week. Like there's an inflection point that I had 3 weeks ago using a new tool. It's like, okay, so like post 3 Saturdays ago and past 3 Saturdays ago, or pre 3 Saturdays ago, is these tools are changing. So don't get too attached to one thing, right? Don't get too attached to any particular tool or any way of doing things, and don't get too attached to what we're best at doing as humans, right? I think as the AI is, the singularity is changing, and as things are moving, we got to keep staying on top of where we add value and get out of loops that we don't add value and create new loops where we add value, and figure out what we're really good at and what we're not so good at. Keep changing the tooling that we're using, keep looking out for new tools, because I think that's the way to progress. We might look at something saying, hey, I'm 10 times faster than I was last week. But if I just stick to that one, then I'm kind of plateauing myself to somewhere. So my advice is be excited about what's happening. It is a little bit of scary times in some ways, but it's also going to be fun times because I kind of knocked out all my personal projects and like everything is complete, and now I'm building really cool features for anything I couldn't have possibly imagined of doing before. So it's super exciting times.
I love that, because your answer to his question kind of leads to my follow-up. So when you go talk to businesses these days, given that all these AI tools are changing so rapidly, to get them introduced to AI if they're not using AI, how do you direct these companies to even start looking at the tools? Like which AI or what to go look at to start with? Or do you just say, just go pick one and start, which can be dangerous, but I'm just curious on your approach to this.
It usually depends, right? If it's a company that they're going to have to go through like 8 security cycles and have something that's like super vetted, and they're not going to like adopt it unless like 8 different people have checked 10 different checkboxes, and it's going to take 6 months, I might go with like a safe choice and say, just, get a standard this or a standard that. Everyone uses it, and get out the box and just start getting some experience under your belt with this tool. If it's a company that is a bit more ambitious and adventurous, I might point them to something more cutting edge and saying, yeah, you do this, you'll be 3 or 4 times faster than using that tool. But it's like on the bleeding edge of things, and just don't give the keys to the production database, because if you do, it's going to burn it down. But if you treat this right, you're going to get much better results, or much faster results here. Here's the trade-offs that you can have. So it's a little bit context specific. I'm generally of the it's not like shoot first, think later, but like do some small amount of pre-planning, but then go. You're going to learn so much more with doing than when thinking about it beforehand, that kind of do a little bit of thinking and then just go. From your experimentation, you're going to figure it out. So I lean toward what's going to get you to that experimentation phase, and then we'll figure it out from there. and prep them, right? Don't get too attached to the tool because, like we said, it's probably going to change. Don't buy the year
Yeah,
contract.
it's funny. We had just that conversation. Michael and I had just that conversation the other day, and it was the same thing because it was like it's not about the tools at this point. It really is. It's like get your mindset in a way that you can use whatever it is, and make sure as best you can that you're not painting yourself into a corner with this, a given tool. It's sort of like we've always had is don't get the past used to be don't get too stuck on a technology stack because it will change or something will happen or there'll be a new, don't get stuck on C because C++ will come out and then C sharp and then the internet comes around and then there's, those kinds of things. The same things are just playing themselves over and over again. And AI is the latest one. It's like, don't bet all your money on Internet Explorer or Mozilla or Netscape or whatever it is. Same thing with AI is don't bet all your money on any one of the AI tools that are out there. I'm even finding that the architectures are changing very quickly as to what makes most sense and where we can, things that we didn't trust. Like you said, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't even trust it, not even 6 months ago. I'm thinking even 3 months ago. We're seeing these changes so fast that it's really, I think the only way to get ahead of it is to, like you said, it's not telling people to be, you only live once kind of thing and just dive in. But it is at some point you've got to start working with it. You can be stuck in analysis paralysis if you don't watch out. So instead of spending all your time worrying about which tool is this and which tool is that, especially because that target is moving, just pick something and learn that it's more about how you think and how you talk to the AI than it is really the AI itself. That's when you can master that, then you have, they used to call it Google Foo. Well, now you have AI Foo. You have that ability now to talk to an agent and be able to have it really start cranking things out. And you've brought up a lot of great things during this conversation. So we will wrap this one up.
I
Go ahead,
have
Michael.
one quick question because where I was kind of going with the AI tools was I continue to see articles where companies have gone out, they've used the AI, and next thing you know, they've got $150,000 AI bill for this small company. It's like, oh my God, I just basically paid for like 4 developers when, I didn't have the budget for that. There are still those concerns and problems. Like how that was, I guess that was the piece missing from my question is with these AI tools, yes, bleeding edge. How do you direct the companies so that they don't bankrupt themselves using these AI tools by picking the wrong one?
So first, I want to know where you can get 4 developers for $150,000. When you have that, let me know. I'll take 8. But kidding aside, I think guardrails come through there, right? Like if you let some token, API access token run amok without some guardrails, you've probably done something. You should check in there. I'm using a couple of subscriptions that run at a couple $100 a month, and I can get 6 developers worth from these couple tokens, and I'm not spending anywhere near 150K. So you just have to, pick the right kind of tools for what you need. The other thing is there are tools that will just burn tokens for no good reason. And that you can do some way too complicated things and they'll give you that big bill for nothing to show in return. So like with every other investment that you do, I think you just have to put controls around your tokens and make sure that what you're doing is being done in the same way. I'm pretty convinced that, again, today you can get a really good return on investment for hundreds of dollars of tokens per engineer that is giving you 5 or 10x what you're getting from one engineer writing code by hand or with AI code complete a year ago. That's going to change, but I don't see any reason where you're going to bankrupt anyone by tokens unless someone just accidentally put the tool in the loop that did that. And I did do that 3 Mondays ago. I let a tool run and it actually hit a bug and it just kept trying to fix something and it ran all night and just burned my subscription overnight. So then I learned how to just shut it down overnight when I go to bed, unless it's actually doing something, and problem solved. So I think those are the same things as deleting the production database. It happens. You put some controls around it, you fix it, but I don't think I'd worry too much about it. Now, if you were using it for legitimate things and you spent $150,000 in tokens, I'm going to say you may have gotten like a couple $1 million worth of value out of it. So maybe don't sweat it too much. But yeah, I think that the economics right now, and again, this may be subsidized by the likes of the big token companies. the value I think there is to be had.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. I was just curious on your feedback on that because I've had multiple arguments with people on that, and I'm more in this way of unless unless you let it run amok, unless there was a problem with it, you probably got your money's worth out of it. But I was just curious if, like you said, you can go buy certain packages, and I just wasn't sure if you were advising your customers to be aware, buyer beware when looking at certain AI tools.
Yeah, I mean, beware the burn, because it will. If you don't set a budget, it will burn you. And we've learned this with AWS and the big cloud providers,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you I had an issue with a customer a few months ago where some Kubernetes pod ran amok and started writing logs to CloudWatch and burnt $8,000 in 2 days. And it's like, oh, rats, right? So because we didn't have a budget, so we put a budget on there, and it just sends you an email, and then you go shut it down. So I think the same thing applies to any of these things that can go expensive. And it's kind of a little bit shame on the token companies for not kind of detecting these and kind of shutting them down before you do. There should be more tools to prevent people from doing silly things. And I think that's going to work for the benefit in the long run. So I think we'll see those.
And I'm starting to see that. I'm seeing even Copilot, get on Copilot will stop you after a certain number continues. I've seen it get into one of those debug things where and it's great because it will sit there and you let it run for a few seconds and you see it's stuck and you go, hey, you didn't, this thing is not something that you looked at, or this is something that's out of context. And then it can move forward. It can get itself unstuck. And I'm seeing that with several of these where they're finding they've got they're already putting some of those guardrails in. This has been awesome. I've reached out to you on LinkedIn. I'm actually going to reach out to you separate from this as well. I'd love for you and I to have a conversation because we live in very similar worlds. I think I'm a little different in a different point in the process, maybe a little upstream and from where you are. But I think we could definitely have a great conversation about some of the things we're seeing and where we're going. And of course, whatever conversation we have 3 weeks later, we'll be like, yeah, I didn't mean any of that. That's totally changed because it sounds like you're seeing the exact same thing.
Well, that's exciting.
It is. It's exciting, but it's sort of hard. And even looking at Developador, the podcast, as we've recommended stuff over the last 6 to 9 months, it has changed so much as we've gone through, even within a single season, because the landscape is so different. So, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I love you as a guest. Your energy, your excitement comes right on through. Any way that we can help you out, feel free to reach out and let me know. And definitely we'll be keeping in touch. And we'll let you know when the links are out there. And feel free to share that wherever you would like to. Also, I do regular posting on LinkedIn, things like that. We have a Developador LinkedIn page. We'll make sure that we're pointing to there wherever we can. And with that being said, go out and I guess have yourself a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day and what's left of the week. And we'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for having me on. It was super exciting. I can nerd out for this for ages. If you have any logos, materials, screenshots that you have, I can also do a pre-promo, hey, this is coming out in next month. We had a really fun conversation recording with these guys and post a link to your podcast and anything you want so we can get some buzz going. So just email those to me and I'll get it rolling.
Sounds good. Thank you. Mike will be sending you some of that. He's our technical team. he's our editing team these days.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. It's great. Have a good one.
Talk soon. Bye.